How are we looking? All right, sweet. Trying the noise gate. I'm trying the mic pumped up a bit. Had some issues. It was pretty quiet past few videos. My mic was also far away, and I didn't realize it. What are we doing today? I'll check the preview. All right, sweet. Character action game development tutorial. So people have been asking about this a lot. This might be a few, well, definitely it's gonna take a while. Maybe not today. So today our goals are physics and the state machine. So we're gonna start with just some primitives. Thought about doing a character model first, but a lot of people have been asking about real specifically, like just getting started with like hit detection and state machines and things like that. So we're gonna go ahead and jump right into that. Let me think here. I'm gonna start like pretty much from scratch. Part of the reason I was like hesitant to get started is because I know I'm gonna like optimize a bunch of stuff, and then I'm gonna wish Citadel Deep had some of these optimizations. So anyway, that's not the real reason. So let's do it. Tutorial. A lot of this stuff doesn't matter too much. I have to change that to culture attack, but I guess not. So, what's a character action game? Well, no, I don't need this, my man. Used to mean like a Mario, like a Sonic, like a Sparkster the Rocket Knight. But has since become mean like Bayonetta, things like that. Devil May Cry, God of War. Even though that's like my personal focus, and that's sort of the modern parlance, this is hopefully gonna let you create things, like either a Mario or Zelda or a Bayonetta if you like. So again, like one of the core things is like the state machine. You've probably heard of it a lot, and it's not as like crazy as, or like advanced or complicated as it sounds. It's just the other way it's phrased as a finite state machine. So, in fighting games, that's like really strict. You're like in neutral, or you're doing your neutral punch, or you're doing your jumping heavy slash, or whatever. You know what I mean? Or doing like a special, or you're in hit stun, or a certain hit stun. And so those are those specific finite states. Generally, only really specific things can happen during that. And so just knowing where to start to like set that up is, I'm starting to realize that that's like a big hurdle, I guess, for folks. They just don't know where to get started because it's really not that complicated. It's just like, well, how do I go about it? So, gonna get started. So, like I mentioned, we're gonna do. Thought there was a character controller one, but so we're gonna do GameObject. We created a new Unity one. This is Unity focused. A lot of this stuff is really universal. The implementation isn't necessarily going to be, well, let me rephrase that. The script and code and that part of the implementation will be pretty universal. But some of this Unity specific stuff, maybe a lot of it won't be, but it's easy to extrapolate. I can assure you of that. So, howdy, Obey J50XD. Thanks for joining us. I don't know how often I'll be able to check the chat. The reason I do the streams is just because it's an easy way to record. Clear. Levels are okay. So, whenever I make a new game, which isn't that often, but whenever I start to prototype a new game or show people how to make games, I start the same way. That is, if I am not super sure and I don't make a character first, which is I often do that first. I don't always recommend that. I know other people do it too. It's like my heart is set on this character in this game in this world. So I'm going to model out the character first, maybe do a running animation and then drop it in. But we're just going to do capsules for now. But like I mentioned, over the course of this series, we're going to cover all that. So what we want to do also is just do GameObject, 3D object, and we'll do a quad. We have something to stand on. Hold control, do the snaps. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 90 degrees always. I'm gonna go ahead. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna get distracted like I usually do. We're just gonna do something simple so we have something to fall onto. So like I mentioned, I do the physics first. I do this same sort of lesson because I think when I learned how to do this, it just I mean not everything, but like so much about how and why games work just came to me. You know, I had done a lot of stuff in like RPG Maker and things like that. And I understood it, you know, I did a lot of hacks and like, cause you know, later RPG makers had codes and stuff. Their code, you could alter the code. You know, I learned a lot doing that too. But when I started making Aces Wild and I did some tutorials for XNA, shout outs to, oh my god, Ska Studios. I can't think of his name right now. He made Salt and Sanctuary and things like that. He had a great book that I followed, and along with just the not built in, but just the freely available official like XNA tutorials were really helpful. Anyway, let's get to it. So what we like to do, this will be our base object, and what we're going to do is, well, let's actually make sure we do all this stuff right. So we're going to create a folder, and I like to have a scripts folder. Due to being able to just search here and assets popping up really fast, I don't like organize very well, but let's at least do a little bit of organization because it can be helpful for certain reasons down the line. We do create C# script, and we're going to do character control is usually what I call it. Let's go ahead and call it character object. A lot of times they're called game objects, which you might know is a default Unity class, so can't be using that necessarily, or you know, so easily. We created this new script. We could have also gone add component script, and then you can create it from there, but we already made it, so we can drag it on here. Now we have our character object script, and we can double click here. That you could right click, do edit script, or you can double click on it down here. It'll pop it open. Depending on what Unity you're using, mine's a little out of date. I just haven't updated. There's no reason not to. Like the free version lets you do so much now, it's crazy. There used to be like a lot of limited stuff, but I mean it's basically just like their services and stuff that you need like the pay version. So we have our character object, and the reason like game object is another good parlance to use and like why Unity has it is because it's not a lot of times this stuff, even for like kind of static stuff, like maybe boxes like in your environment, you're going to want some of these behaviors. But you know, it's just the name at this point, so that doesn't really matter too much. But what I'm getting at is that, again, like these behaviors can be used through more than you might think. You know, when I started, it's like, oh, you know, just the characters and enemies. And it's like, well, the projectiles use these exact same behaviors. It's like, well, in Aces Wild, you could like beat up the environment, so stuff's flying around and they can knock into enemies. It's like, well, okay, I guess they have those same behaviors too. So yeah, that's why Unity has it set up that way. Anyway, I'm going in circles now. So that first lesson, we are going to be focusing on 3D. I don't know if we'll get to the camera control necessarily because I think I did a camera video. I can't even remember now. But so we might just drag some scripts in. Anyway, first thing about like game development, that just like that's how games work. I get it now. So games in the scene. So this is a game object. It's also a character object now because we added that script. And this also illustrates like why there's so many like overlapping behaviors. Because a character, game object, character or a light or just so much stuff has a transform. And in Unity, the transform is like the position, the transform position, the rotation. Whoops. Excuse me. That and the scale. A lot of that stuff is really universal. So again, that's why that stuff is Control Z, back it up. Put in such a core component, you know, just you know, that it's sort of based on that. Anything in a scene, or even in a scene, which we'll get to, like we'll make a game engine object that will just hold like static data for us and static references. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself again. I'm sorry. So anyway, we have a position, and we're making a 3D game, so it's X, Y, and Z. In Unity, Y is up, and Z is forward, quote unquote. If you ever get out of focus, you can press F to focus after clicking on it, or you can click on it in the hierarchy and do F. Access it there. There's an X, Y, and Z position. So X and Z is your lateral position. Y is your up and down, or your like sort of gravitational axis. When I did X and A, negative is up, but not in Unity. So, and you'll see that like we'll pop open Blender, maybe this video, maybe not, but we'll see that like Y is actually front and back, and Z is up and down. Anyway, we have this transform. In Unity, that stuff like already exists because we're a game object. So it's a mono behavior. I believe this necessarily has to be on a game object, like their Unity's game object class. So if we just did transform, you can see it's already in there. That's our transform, and that lets us control like what happens. Anyway, so much back and forth. What we have is we already have our position in space because we're a game object, so we don't necessarily have to have that as a variable. This is going to require like a little bit of programming knowledge, so you can just follow along, like if you have like 0, and you'll be fine, but some of it might not make total sense right away. So sorry for that, but it's just the way how I'm going to do it. So, but one of the main things is your velocity. So we're going to do public vector3 velocity. So in here, if you don't know, like our vector, all these are vector 3s. The rotation actually isn't. It's represented as one here, and you can operate on it with vector 3s. But it's actually quaternion, which is how you do rotations, and they're really complicated. They're extremely, really complicated. They can be so frustrating, but they're good in the end. It's just hard. So we have our position, right? So our velocity is what we're going to apply to an object to make it move. So if we're looking at just numbers, forget the scene. We have our position here, right? If we look at just numbers, back at the scene, if we're just changing numbers, you know, it's moving, right? So in terms of games, right, we just have values. It's just numbers, like the whole thing. And generally you have two main things. You have like your code update, and then you have your draw update. So I think it's good to think of it that way. Like you have, you know, you mess with the numbers, and then you draw those numbers in a way that you want. That's the other important thing about GameObject is it has like built-in draw calling, basically. That's a really reductive way to put it, but basically whatever we have set to render, you know, we have our mesh renderer, which, you know, I won't get into too much, but whatever we decide to render, whether it's a sprite or 3D object, it's going to render at these positions, at this rotation, and this scale. So if x is, you know, 0, it's going to be at x equals 0, right? And then we increase x, and it's moving. So I mean, that's it, right? Like that is video games. You know, maybe stack on some like RPG elements with like inventory and stuff, and that's like all video games. So we just need a way to change these values, right? It's that simple. So you don't want to use input necessarily to change position. You want to change a velocity, and then you use those velocities to change your position. It may seem like a middle person at first, but you want it this way. Just believe it. So if we have our velocity here, and then we have our update, and we're going to go ahead and make a new method just to organize. So I always do update physics, and you can use the built-in Unity physics, but I think they're kind of I don't say they're garbage, but they're just, I go for arcadey feel, you know. Oh, whoops. So it's void update physics. And then in our update, we'll have some other stuff. You'll see other tutorials and like good programming practice where it's like, okay, we're gonna do, you know, update input first, and then we're gonna do update state machine. I was doing this ironically, but now it's like, hey, and then update physics, and then we go in and fill that in how we might need. And we're gonna refresh this just in case I have troubles with the Steam stream. Oh my gosh, chat, not always updating. So again, this is a mono behavior. It's a script type built into Unity. It's gonna, at certain points, and there's actually other ones like you can do like late update. You just have to know what they are. Like you look up in the API. But at certain points, this code's just gonna run. So right when it starts, initialization, and then update is just every frame gonna update the physics, or you know, gonna have whatever's in here is gonna happen every frame. So update physics. What we want to do is just apply that velocity to our position. We do transform.position plus equals velocity. That's it. So what's happening is we have a vector 3 and our transform position's a vector 3, so we just, whatever our velocity down here is, going to just add it to this. So it's not quite a game yet. Whoops. Oh, we don't have a scene. Create folder, scenes. And can I just drag it in there? Oh. Default. We saved our scene. So we grab our capsule again. What we did here, you know, again, position gonna increase based on the velocity. Go ahead and hit play. Hopefully our camera's in the right position. Okay, good, it is. So nothing's happening, right? Sorry, my phone rang. So we just need to increase the velocity, right? So this is probably gonna get out of hand, but we're gonna drag this up and it moves, right? Like, I know that seems silly, and I don't know, it's beautiful to me every time. Like, that just illuminated to me how games work. You know, we're right here. This just gets drawn at a certain position, and then we make new variables that change that position. So now it's moving that way, moving that way. Also moving laterally like that now. Stop moving in the background, just moving left and right again. And then my planet needs me. So the next step that I like to do is either apply that gravity. You know, we have a gravity there. We turn off. Oh, we don't have the rigid body on there. It's just the lighter. We're going to have to do that too. And do a character controller. So, but we'll get into that. So there's just some things that Unity is a little bit like non-standard that I'm not used to, even though I've been working in it forever. So let's just do the gravity. So you can do a vector 3 if you're doing like Mario Galaxy. You might want to have like crazy gravities that need to be like an actual vector 3 in this instance. So it like pulls you to the planet based on where you are and rotates the character and things like that. I generally just like to keep it as a single value. However, it's much easier to add vector 3. So if we just had a float, gravity equals 0.01. Negative, actually. So it's okay. And again, we don't update the position. This is a new this is a new force. And all of our forces are applied to our velocity and then that velocity we can, then apply to the position. So we do velocity plus equals gravity. It's like, oh, that's mad because it's actually velocity.y plus equal gravity. And for some reason it's working. I thought it got mad when you applied just to a single, I don't know, man, maybe Unity updated, and anyway, all right, well, let's do that. But what I was going to get at is you could do like vector 3, gravity, and then just have zeros for the other two, but if it's okay with that, then we're good. We'll go ahead and hit play, and we fall through because we don't have any collision. So you can see that that's updating automatically. So now what we need to do, this part's a little bit annoying. I don't know how exactly we want to do it. I totally wasn't thinking about it. Go ahead, add a rigid body. Let's actually just do a character controller. There it is. Do I need a rigid body on there? I might have to open up my other script to see. Because really, what we end up doing then, instead of transform that position, we do so we have that character controller now, and I just really recommend doing this. You can avoid it, and I avoided it for a long time, but generally if Unity wants you to do it a certain way, you should just do it and then find little workarounds if you need to, instead of like trying to like steer clear of it entirely. So I have a character controller. We'll make it, doesn't necessarily need to be public. Actually, maybe it does. And I call it my controller. Now real quick. You could make a call at the start where my controller equals get component character controller. And so it'll look at itself, find a component that's of this class character controller, and then make it the reference here. Because we need a reference to it so we can start using it. You don't want to call get component all the time because it's slow. So you want to do it in the beginning, or you can just assign it in the inspector like that. You just drag it in there. Play, just to make sure things are working okay. So now we sort of have like another level. This is one of those Unity specific ones. What we want to do is do my controller.move. You can see right here, a more complex move function taking absolute movement deltas. So again, Unity has a ton of built-in stuff. So if you want to just sort of use their gravity and their physics and things like that, you wouldn't necessarily use this one. But I like to do my own physics, so we're going to use this one instead. Looking for a vector 3, and what is it? It's our velocity. There, save. Hopefully the collision will be working. Might not quite yet. We might need another step. Okay, good. It is. So now, that's one of those reasons why you just use the Unity built-in stuff, because of that. Now, if we go to our velocities, you can see our velocity right here is still ramping up. So we need to change that. Like the velocity is increasing, but it is getting stopped. So it's kind of like, if you ever played the first Castlevania, if you walk off an edge, you like plummet to the ground because your velocity doesn't ever change. You may or may not want that. Generally, you don't. 0 does not seem to be moving. It was just too slow. Laters. You see, it just fell off the edge really quick. But that's good. I was a little worried doing the collision stuff can be annoying, but Unity for the most part is pretty dope. We have our physics. Let's check my checklist. Vector input setup, then do the physics, and then get to the state machine. So now, the missing link here, we have our update, our code update, and then we have our draw. And then we have our like our input. Sorry, I just got a text. Sorry. See, my mom's sick, and we have a bunch of new people living in the house. My sister was out of country for a while, and now her and her husband are living here, and we only have a couple cars, and everyone needs rides, and everyone's sick, and trying to do a video. Anyway, the missing link to it is the input, right? So we want an input instead of me, just clicking around over here, or us clicking around over here. We want a keyboard or controller input. So down the line, we're going to change this. What we're going to do input. We're going to keep it easy at first, just so it's everything's sort of in one script. But later on, we'll probably put this like in a player class, and then that would be separate, and then the player class would have like a reference to a character object, and that way that input that the player is throwing out goes to the you understand, right? So default Unity input is capital input dot get axis. I usually do get axis raw. Says there no smoothing filtering applied. And this part's a little annoying, but that's why we're doing the tutorial, so we can get all this stuff. So you go to edit, project settings, input. We have our axes here. Horizontal and vertical. I was going to get to how to set up like a 360 controller, maybe in a few steps here, but we'll just stick to this. I like to do the default sensitivities though. You want zero gravity? I don't remember what the gravity is like on these. It's so whack. Like there's just, I mean, it's good. It's just there's so much stuff to deal with. Dead zone. I like to do my own dead zones too. You can set them here, but I like the stuff to be as raw as possible here, and then we do our own stuff in here. Set those dead zone. So what was it called? Horizontal. So checks by string. Horizontal. So you can see here, it's a float. So we throw horizontal at the input manager. It checks for any input devices that correspond to that, through this sort of magic. It's like checking, it's joystick axis or mouse button, things like that. We're actually going to do joystick. That might not matter. I think if one of them you can leave and it kind of collects it from everything anyway. And then it throws a float back based on any input. So that's like all hardware programming stuff that we don't know about, so we just let them handle it. But that's why I like it as raw as possible. Raw means it's like this stuff isn't making any changes. It's as raw as we can get that the data from the actual input device, either the keyboard or the controller or whatever, is unfiltered, unadulterated. So this is an if statement. So if horizontal greater than dead zone. Isn't that what that Dragon Ball movie was called? The first Dragon Ball Z movie? Actually, we'll put it down here. Click float dead zone low point. We'll just do 1 for now. So what's a dead zone? Most people actually probably know what this is, but on like a joystick, like an analog stick, they're not perfect, especially after many years of use. They get kind of loose. And so if you just did it based on 0 or not, then you're going to get all this like wacky, like erratic movement and just sort of artifacts and, environmental sway. And I was trying to think of it. There's like a galaxy like term for it. I can't think of what it is, but anyway, so we do the dead zone. So horizontal is greater than the dead zone. I want to make sure our camera is actually set up. We might need to flip this based on the camera. And again, later we'll make it based on the camera. But if we're just doing a 2D game or our camera's stationary, and and like stationary like the whole game, never changing, then this works. So let's also do got move speed. Do move speed here. So if it's greater than the dead zone, do velocity.x plus equals move speed. And then we'll copy this whole thing. Less than dead zone. We'll do not minus equals. You might think that. I know this sounds whack, but it's better to just add the opposite instead of subtracting the same. I know this seems whack, but like it's just a better way to think about it. So we can go ahead and hit that, save that, Control S. Play over here. Hopefully we'll get some. Are we moving it all? I don't think it's picking up my. Because the keyboard's not working either. What went wrong? Well, this is often what happens, is that we made that method, but it's not actually getting called. Hopefully. So what we did is they didn't put in the main update. And that's generally what you want to do first, is like update your inputs, update your actions, and then update your physics. That's how I do it, and it works for me. Whoops. So we got kind of... Dead zone's really small. Maybe it doesn't need to be bigger. Fortunately, this is a public float, so even if I change it here, it's already been initialized in the script. You either have to remove the script and add it again, or you have to go with actual script. It's still going whack. I'm not quite sure. Take a look at my velocities. I'm trying to think what's going on here. I know what I did wrong. So I didn't put the minus in the dead zone, so it's less than the positive dead zone. So even at 0, it's going to be that. So 0.01 left or right of 0. We need to make sure we're actually checking left of 0. So that should have been negative dead zone. That's my bad. Now we should be just hanging out left and right. See, you can see there's acceleration there because the velocity increases over time. So, if you're making kind of a basic game, I really don't recommend this. I'd rather you put like speed limits. You can do equals instead. And through velocities, you can get that sort of snappy movement still. Oh, it never goes back to 0. So, alternatively, again, this is just for showing you what's up. Don't recommend doing this. Then, as soon as we stop, it just stops. And that move speed, this is one of the awesome things about Unity. It's just like in there. You may like that, there's great games that I enjoy to this day. Not to this day, right now. Manic shooters. Bullet hell, as they're called sometimes. Or probably more than manic shooter nowadays. Just real strict, tight movement like this. We're hitting right, go right, hit left, and go left. So now, actually feels pretty good, but I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to get rid of these else's. These are kind of just inherently else, but in order to have it this way, we had to have it anyway. Not that important. The next thing I like to do is friction. And this one can be a bit... You can have great games with like really loose friction. Aces Wild and like Smash Brothers, sorry, like self-referential, but Smash Brothers is real slippery. But in game, it feels great, right? I think. But if you ever see those shots where the camera's like really static, they're like slip sliding away like all over the place. But for game feel wise, it feels pretty nice, in my opinion. So now we do public vector 3. We do friction, excuse me. What friction is going to do is bring down our velocities. It's going to dampen our velocities. I think the best feel comes from just scaling it, which is like multiplying it. So we're going to do a new vector 3. And generally, like gravity and like friction, you want to be not necessarily static, but global. So all your actors will have like the same gravity. There are exceptions. Like in fighting games, some people have different floats. Float like their jumps not only are faster or lower or higher, it's like they're slower or faster. So it's just something you gotta get a feel for. For like the Y, I usually have it a little bit different, like a little bit higher. So higher means it's gonna be less dampening. And there's also times where you may not want any dampening, like certain hit effects. It kind of depends, but that's as the game gets more advanced. What's going to happen is it's going to multiply our velocity by this. And you want it to be less than 0 and greater than 1. Less than or equal to those two, like 1 or 0. You can have 1 or 0, that's fine. Although a 0 friction means you'll never move. So we go to our update physics. One of the last steps. You can do it first. That way nothing... The reason you would do that is so... we type it first. So velocity times equal. This one might give us a... Is it okay? Yeah. What we have to do is... I think you can just do velocity.scale. Just another weird Unity thing. I really thought it was going to give us trouble with the .y too. So you might think that this is applying it first, which is what we're kind of aiming for, and then we apply like our other stuff. That way, things that happen on this frame aren't affected by friction yet. You may or may want that. It's a really minor thing, but let's say, we do a jump and our velocity y equals 10 or whatever. That first frame, if we apply the friction afterward, then it's not going to be 10 on that frame. It's never going to be 10 based on just doing that one jump because the friction is applied to it. You think here, okay, we'll do that first in our physics. Well, actually, we need it after the move. Unless we had it in a different spot. So that way all this stuff happens, then we move, and then, we scale down that velocity for the next frame, and then we can apply stuff. So it's really minor. You're going to be adjusting these values a bunch anyway, so it may not matter too much in the end, but good to think of. I feel like I didn't save, that was weird. Good to just have the right way to do things. So we go, then right. See, we're kind of sliding to a stop now. I'll go ahead and increase our move speed. You can hear, I don't know, I have the noise gate on, and I let go. Now we're sliding to a stop. Because now we always have a way to like dampen that. Instead of it being based on like our state, we'll want to do stuff like that too. But now we always have a way to just sort of slow down. And again, this is pretty slippery. So, you may want to do something more like this. Even that's like a little slippery. It depends on your style. I've kind of come around. I used to like it really slippery. In my current game, really tightened it up, and I feel like I could still tighten it up a bit. So when you have a higher friction, it can be, it's just numbers that you're just gonna have to get used to. It's whatever you're developing for yourself, or for your project. Even just that little bit of slide there feels really good. Excuse me. The higher friction, gives you sort of a snappier gameplay. It means some. What am I trying to say here? Maybe it's not that important. Anyway, it can, if you adjust your friction down the line, I guess is what I'm getting at, is that it can kind of mess up a lot of stuff. So that's sort of maybe one of the weaknesses of using a friction like so explicitly like that. Some people just like have it just in the state machines, and some don't. I mean, like, I can't say for certain, but like Mario 64 or something would have probably universal friction. But I don't know. I don't know that for sure. Maybe only Mario has like those certain sort of physical, and maybe the enemies and stuff have more of just a generic sort of movement on the gravities and stuff. So now, where am I going? Sorry, I wanted this. Physics. So let's go to the next step. So if we, not sure what button it is. They say jump. And we're bippity bop. The old Unity wiki has bitings for 0. I believe you have to, and this is like where it gets really weird. Joystick button 0. So at positive button is where you set a string for it to look at the actual input device. It's going to depend on your input device, I believe, if you're using this or whatever. This is just the name that we call it. And whatever we call it is what we call it in here. Mouse button. Whoops. That all should be fine. So if we do if put get access raw, so we should do get button down. The button down means it's being pressed. When we get like a more advanced like input buffer and input system for ourselves, we might want to just stick to it being really raw, and then we decide like how like button down is. The reason for that is for an input buffer. We check out the video on input buffer. We're going to cover it again here. Not today's, but in this tutorial, I imagine we will. That, this is only checking like immediately. Anyway, there's reasons to not have it. So we do velocity.x instead. Let's just do velocity.y. Plus equals jump pow. So we do public jump pow equals, let's do 1. Excuse me. I haven't spoken this much in a long time. I got my buttons right. We hit jump, fly in the air. That's a big jump power. So what's happening? So similar to I don't want that harsh gravity. Let's do 5. Now, pretty snappy movement here, going left and right. Hit X. That was weird. It wasn't like detecting it. That's weird. It's not like detecting it sometimes. I don't know why. I know I've heard of people saying they like lose inputs. I've never run into it until this very moment. Using Unity. I think there's a reason for it. But I don't know what it is. Maybe because we're not using fixed update, which I was going to get to. this gets really complicated at this point. So you have fixed update. I believe by default it tries to go for 60 frames per second. See that the speed might be a little bit different, and there might be some like stuttering. If the game had all its resources and it wasn't running like in editor mode, you wouldn't see that stuttering necessarily. What's happening now is that, yeah, it's being whack. I think my dead zones are really tiny. I don't know why the jump isn't working every time. That's really weird. Anyway, fixed update is like regular update. It just tries to update as much as it can. So what you have to do is scale everything by oh my gosh, delta time. Sorry, so delta means a change. If you're not familiar, you see triangle like in math. It just means a change. So time dot change in time. But there might be other things that you want. I'm not going to get into it quite yet. I don't use it in my own game. I keep it at fixed update because I come from fighting games. But I don't. I used to think it was like 100% better than everything else, but starting to come around on an update that updates as much as it can. So the reason for that is so if the frame rate changes for whatever reason. So if the frame rate lags or is going fast, you know, that move speed, it won't move as much if it's going really fast, like if it's updating quickly. And if it's going slow, then it'll give you like bigger jumps. So that way it maintains everything being smooth. Just a personal preference thing. It's like a complicated subject. I don't know why it's not pitching that update every that input. It's really weird. You can also see that we can like jump in the air. I thought there was a bit of a hold on. You see right here? It's a secret. Oh my gosh. Velocity.y plus equal jump power. All that stuff I said about fixed update and things like that, that's fine. Let's take a little look over here. Our velocity. That velocity.y going down, 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 right? We hit X. I'm hitting X. I'm adding values, but we're not moving. You can see the Y is actually changing, but we're not getting past 0 because we're adding it. So you may want that in some cases. For now, we're going to do this. It's a little more arcadey. But it's also because we haven't set it to stop our velocities once we're actually stopped. Our velocity is still like ramping up. It's good that we're running into these problems because I'm still straight. So now we're not dropping any inputs. That was all in my head. Again, that fixed update stuff is we dropped on there. Actually, might have. Still dropping them every once in a while. Just a Unity thing. Again, in my own game, I really don't have too many problems with it, but anyway, not a big deal. It's something that's easily overcome. I just don't know how to get into it right now. It jumps a little high. Not too important for this tutorial, but so we have trying to think about how to go to this, how to think about going to it, because now we might, we're doing just like a Mario or something, like a old Mario. Our state probably doesn't change too much. These values change. Our gravity, our velocities. We may hold down to duck. That might change our state a little bit. It's mostly just flags, I would imagine. If we're doing a state machine, need to get a little more advanced. Or, to cover more actions, we need to get more advanced and do like a state machine. Just not sure. I think we should just dive right in. So, we're going to make a new script. We don't want this to be a mono behavior. This is going to be data. In Aces Wild, I did not do data for all my actions and all my animations I did, but for calling up the animations I didn't. It was all hard coded. It's insane. I mean, it's not that crazy, but and we'll call this character action. You can call it character state. Keep it consistent. I don't want a mono behavior. How dare you? You get rid of that. No. Also, I don't like this. I understand the reason. I don't know what it's called, but when you have the curly brace right after the method. But I can't stand it. If you like it, that's fine. So we don't need any of this. I feel like we should call it a character state. Forgive me. It just sounds too much like character action game. Go in here. To rename like that, it's like you click and then keep it held there. Actually, I thought it was only a Unity thing, but I guess that's pretty universal. I don't know. I want to say like in modern times it probably began like 10 years ago or something. So, and mono develops kind of, or it's not mono developed now. This is Visual Studio, but we'll crack that character state open again. So we have a character state. Unity has this built-in state machine called Mecanum, which you can use for animations, and you can use it for like having like your state machine, like not just your animations. I want to eventually like migrate to that in my current project, but for now, let's just learn about like a basic character state. So some of the stuff that I'm going to add here is going to be like, we'll get to it later. We won't necessarily need it, but we'll add it. So public string, we'll call it state name. It's not that important. Public int state index. You can just call it index if we want to actually go ahead and do it. So let's actually get to the state stuff. So what is a state? Well, the thing that happens. It's a state that we are in. It has a beginning and an end. So beginning and end is it has a length. So do public int length. Again, we could, let's go ahead and do floats. Float length. Sorry, I'm just thinking a bit. So for Aces Wild, if you know how to switch cases, switch. It's just for learning purposes. Am I doing this wrong? Oh, how do you do a switch case? I do them all the time. Why is it not working? Oh, because we're... So... I'll get to it. Just sit still. So this is how I did my states in Aces Wild. So each state just had a switch case based on the current frame. We had a current time. And actually, this will be in the character, not in the state. It was actually an int, but... And so we had the main update, which updated our time. And then checked for our... Here. No, I want it here. Current state. So again, these wouldn't be in your state class. These would be in your character object. So each frame, current time increases. And then we update the state. So let's go ahead and do that. So in our character object, we'd be like public int current state float current state time. And have void update date. You might, if you're new to it, you might already start to understand like what's going on. So state at the end, just like here where we update it at the end here, you know, after the actual like update state part. So we do current state time. We'll just do plus plus. We're doing it frame by frame. And here, actually update current state. So we can make that a method 2. I don't know. It seems like it's getting a little methody. Too many. Too modular. So just for argument's sake, we do update current state. We're not going to implement it this way, but it's easier to understand. So what we're going to do, what we're going to end up doing is we have our current state. So we do update current state and we pass that current state. We have our current state time, which is like where we are in the state. And the current state is what state we're in. And so when we call this, we go here. What we're going to do is have a list of character state. Again, we're not going to implement it this way, just so I can show you the code. Please. So I have a list of characters. Oh, whoops. State list, that's why I was mad. Excuse me. Forgive me. So you have a list or arrays, and that's you know, a collection of like objects. In this case, it's going to be character states. What we're going to do is make like a global state list. For Aces Wild, I had it like super generic. Everyone can use whatever state. And then I was like, that's whack for Citadel Deep. And then I was like, nah, actually, it's nice to have some generic states. So it's good to have, I would recommend using one big global list. Even if there's not too much overlap, there might be a little bit that can be helpful, especially for like enemy behaviors and stuff. So then we do over here, we're going to check that state list. We're going to do a bracket here. We're going to do current state dot, excuse me, did I not make it public? My bad. And then update. So, you know, our character here, we do something, it changes our current state. It just changes the value, right? You know, current state, we start at 0, we hit jump. Let's say, instead of velocity.y, we do, I didn't want 3 in my main. Current state equals 1. And this is going to get real whack real soon, so that's why we're going to, you know, have data to control like a move list and then like all of our states and stuff like that, because just remembering, which I did in Aces Wild, I had all these text files, I just had all the state numbers. It was stupid. There's even better ways to do that for hard coding, but that's what I did. So, you know, current state equals 1. So then, you know, remember, we do the update first. And actually, we would want to do like update input buffer, and then I actually call it command because then it like you have a command after updating the input. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, you know, we update our input, If we hit jump, then current state will equal 1. If we're at, 0 is neutral, per se. And for instance, we hit jump right here. Our update the input. We had some changes. There's only one change. Current state equals 1. Go to update state. Where is it? Update state here. Check our current state. We can see how this is a little redundant. We'll go ahead and actually do that. Rid of that. Update state. And we'll actually have again a static list. Sorry, that got out of hand. So, update input. That was the problem. Hit jump. Current state turns into 0. And actually, what we really, really, really want to do. Sorry. I want to start state. I used to have like an exit state, and you may want it, but now I just do start state. I don't have an end state. What happens is like things either loop or it just starts up the neutral state. So for start state, we will pass a value, new state, and for now, current state just equals the new state, and then current state time also equals 0. This is another reason why we do the update of the time, like at the very end, right here, update state time. Because when we go to 0, frame 0 is the first frame. I really recommend doing it that way. It doesn't matter too much, but it lines up with regular coding a lot more. You hear fighting game commentators, they say, not all of them, they'll say frame 1, and I'm like, actually, the reason for that is like, let's say, for fighting games, if you have one frame startup, then something can happen on that frame. But let's say you have like a super throw like Hugo, and it comes out on frame 0. It comes out on the frame you input it. So if that person isn't jumping on the frame you hit that button, then they're going to get hit by it. But if there's one frame, then there's one frame that needs to transpire first. So stuff can happen on that frame. That's why I recommend, you can say the first frame, but I think it's a lot more... Sorry, this is a bit of an aside. It's a lot more accurate to say, frame 0, I think. So anyway, we'll have a start state thing here. Current state time equals 0, and current state equals new state. So now we can just do start state. We'll say start state 1, which is jump. So again, we're going through it all. Update input, fix our inputs, sees, oh, we hit the jump button, you start state. Start state 1. What happens is that current state equals that new state, which is 1, and state time equals 0. It's because we're starting a whole new state, so we got to go back to the beginning. So update input, update state. So now we hit this state. Look at our list. Again, we're going to make a global list of our states. Takes the current state, so instead of 0.update, it's going to do 1.update. And we're going to make a state for that, which will be jump. And then we update that. We do whatever that state does. And then we update the state time. Again, that's so we can have frame 0. And we update our physics. And again, we already know what happens in the jump. We just increase our velocity, plus we update all our other stuff, and then we'll update collisions and hit detection and things like that. So that is the backbone of a state machine. You have your input, and the input turns into a command to throw at the character. That character takes that command to turn it into I'm phrasing this weird, but it goes into a state, and then the state applies velocities and other flags and things like that. And then based on the frame we're on, that will happen at different times. We have our state time. So let's say now, well, I guess we'll still call it update. Again, what I did for Aces Wild is I actually had another switch case here. Switch current state. And so like, this is so whack. It's like embarrassing. Case 0, update, neutral. Case 1, update, jump. Again, do not do this. We are gonna do it right now just to show you, but you can, what am I getting at here? I'm trying to say. Anyway. Another reason, like this is gonna be hard to show is because we actually want all this in here in a sense. We want to look at that data, but it's like, it doesn't know anything about the character, so it's like I can't do like, well, I could do it through the transform, but you know, we would need to pass. We need to connect these two somehow. But basically, it's like, then we have this switch case. Or switch, is it switch case? I can't even think of what it's called right now. I should do it twice. And then you might want an end state here, but frame actually. So let's say we have like a whack jump. I mean, it's not necessarily bad. We'll do it on frame 5. So, you know, we go update jump, and then on frame 5 we do, I'll just comment it out, velocity plus equals, you know, jump power. So to go through it all again, you know, when we do that update state, this current state.update goes in here, goes update, it looks at its own current state, goes through the switch case, or the switch, what is it called? Now I don't even know. Goes through the switch, and it going okay? All right, cool. Sorry, it's making me laugh. It checks what its current state is, so it's not 0 anymore, it's 1. And then it goes through here, checks what frame we're on. Frame 0, nothing happens. Wait a few frames, you know that. So all that happens, and then we're done, right? And then that happens for frame 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then on frame 5, it adds a velocity. So 5 frames later, after hitting jump, go into the air, and then 15 frames later, you know, we go back to neutral or whatever. You know, it's an automatic thing that, like, once it ends. So go here. If time is greater than or equal to length. Whoops. Then we end state, or we start state 0. You know, we could just do current state. Well, we should have an end state here. Just like start state. And you can see that I'm actually sort of overlapping here. So again, this is for illustrative purposes. We're going to actually do it a little bit differently, but hopefully that shows you like how it works. Because we're going to make our own event system here instead of having these switches. I don't know what they're called. Switch case? Hold on. Switch case. Switch statement. Switch statement. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Oh. So even though I have this like public void update here, again, we're not quite gonna do that. We're gonna look at that state through the character object and look at its data. But this could get you started. Like if you just want to quit here, stop listening to this nonsense. What we really want is something a lot more advanced than that. So we're gonna do public class state event. So state events, you know, similar to a state, they have. I gotta check these messages. People might need a ride. You don't necessarily need a name for that. You could do an index. You don't necessarily need that either. But we do need a length and we do need a start time. You can do start and end time. So we do public float start, float end, and then I'm trying to think of a name. Like class. We could just call it a state script or state command. We'll call it a script for now. So in a character state, every state's going to have an arbitrary list of state events. Events. So now instead of just having, you know, hard coding all this stuff, we're going to look at these events and different things are going to happen. And then we're going to code each one of those to do different things. And, you know, state event's going to have a start and an end. We probably want to pass some variables. And this can get a lot more advanced. And if you're doing like string-based scripting, you know, it gets a lot different. I'm not going to get into that. That's something you can look up. Or maybe down the line we'll do a more advanced thing. And, you know, for now, we probably, I don't know if we need this quite yet. We might just do script index. So what's going to happen is it's going to, well, let's go through it. So now we have this. So now instead of like doing this update and having this state list, and actually, for now, global states. Now we have that to look at. So again, we don't necessarily like update that state. We look at that state and its events and run scripts based on what events are in there. So we're going to go ahead and do a new state events. So you can do for each nowadays, right? They say it's like cleaned up. Each event in global states indexed current state. Did I do that right? Events, excuse me. So we have our current state, right? That changed. So we're going to now just update the events. We're going to look at the events in those states. And then we're going to run scripts based on whatever we threw at that, right? Or like that was in the event. So now do void run character script or run event script. Or let's just do event script. do need to pass one. Let's call it index. So now, here's where, like, if you're more familiar with like doing string-based scripts, or you have like scripting language that you already use, but this is just how I do it. For now, we will switch index 0 break, and we will have a jump script. So, how dare you? So this is like it's not like the character command jump. It's like we're going to be able to pass different variables, and there's going to be some like foundational things like removing like how many jumps, quote unquote, you have left. Applying some, well, that might be in the events itself, but basically it's something more reusable that we're going to do. So we're going to have something like lateral movement, we're going to have jump, things like that. So float jump. I know this seems like really complicated and like whack, but in the end, like, this is how you do it properly. Float pow. And so before, you know, we had that basic jump pow, and we may still want that for certain other scripts, but there's better ways to do this as well, but we're going to pass that variable. We're going to, for each event, we're going to do event script, and we're going to pass the script, and we're going to pass the variable. The variables, how dare I? So you can make what gets passed here like more complicated. You can sort of look at them a different way. You could set this up in a lot of ways, but hopefully this is starting to let you understand like the state machines. How long have we been going? Really? That's good. I thought we've been like going for a long time. Event script. So, you know, each event has a script that we're going to call. It's going to have a start time and an end time. That's what I was forgetting. This was like if ev.start less than or equal to current state time and this is where it's going to get more complicated. You might want one fire events only. You may want some that have a window but only fire once still based on something else. It's really complicated. But to get started, like I'm doing this wrong. Also want what? Why not? That's mad. I don't know why. Anyway, double click, hit F12. Why? I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand. Anyway, we want previous state time. So what we do is when we update our state, we do previous state time equals current state time. Give me, do that here. And then we do state events. I think I have that right. Kind of weird. Yeah, so it's whenever we increment it, we just want the previous one to be set. So when we come back here, let's say we're on frame 10, we update. Previous state time equals 10, current state time now equals 11. So we come back here, you know, our current is 11 and our previous is 10. That's good, that's what we want. And that's because if we need to increase this in another way, again, there's so many constituents or variables that it just gets too hard to talk about what ifs. Forget how to do this. Start from the beginning. If previous state time is less than or equal to event start. So this is set up like this. It's only for like one-shot ones. You might notice that just less than or equal can like give us trouble. It's just I have this. There's a bug in my own game right now where like the first frame events on the first frame will fire twice because of this. It doesn't matter too much because it's usually movement or I don't have anything on the first frame, frame 0. I don't want to think too hard about it right now. I just don't want to get caught up on it. There's a better way to like do this, and it depends if you want like something to be active for that whole time or if you just want to one fire. So we'll just do this for now. The problem is because honestly, let's just do it this way for now. Might not even use like previous state time. So if current state time equals to event start, then we will do the event script. So now it's going to get like a little complicated. Like I know it's already complicated, but we need a way to store all these states and things. Again, you could use Mecanum. You could just have all these states in their state system. And you do what's called state behaviors, I think. State behaviors. And they're scripts that you just slap onto like the state machine, and you would do something real similar. I ran into some hiccups doing that, so that's why I'm still using my own like state machine here. But we need a way to hold everything. So we're going to need a scriptable object. Scriptable objects, you generally think of it as read-only for the most part. So it should be like hard data that you just look at. I mean, I don't want to tell you how to run your live, but you shouldn't really be writing to it like at runtime, and they shouldn't necessarily be objects that are acted on at runtime. I currently do that myself, and it's bad. I'm trying to not do it. Unless you're writing like your save files or whatever. Excuse me. So we're going to go ahead and go to Assets, create a folder. We'll just call it Data. We're going to do create search script. We're going to call it core data. Actually want that in the scripts for now. How dare you. Still going to use that data folder. I just. And core data is going to be a scriptable object. So we're going to go ahead and just copy all of this. Instead of mono behavior, it would be a scriptable object. So here is like a, I forget what these are called, but it's like a system command for like Unity. It's like an editor command. I'll actually call it core data when we create a new one. And the menu name is like, this is where it's going to appear. We're going to call it, actually tutorial / data. I thought you could just leave it out. Is that true? Don't need this stuff. Gonna be mad, or is it okay? We're gonna go to our data. We're gonna go right click, you create. Where is it? Maybe I did do it wrong. Or is it only up here? Let's clean it up there, my dudes. Well, fine. Maybe it needs to have this. Excuse me? What am I missing? Alright, I don't know why it's not working. It's like saying it's not saving. I think something's whack with. I was hitting save a bunch and just like it was not saving. I think that's the issue. Yeah. There it is finally. What you do is right click here. I don't know what happened there. It just happens sometimes. Didn't control S a bunch and just was like refusing to save. There it did. So we'll go to data, right click, create, core data. Now we have this core data object. Again, these are like static, like these are like system files. They're read only. I mean, that's what you want them to be, except that edit time, which is, you're creating your data for it. So we're going to want a lot of stuff. We want like save files, want our character states, and that's the main one for now. We want like, oh no, we won't need that. Let's just do that. Let's do public list. Oh my gosh. All the usings in here. We need the collections so we can use lists. Character state. I'll call it global states. So now, do this. I have to start to do some more. I'm going to be like going through some stuff that's like really fast. I hope you just follow along. Again, there's other tutorials out here about like scriptable objects and serialization that we're going to be doing. Just believe in it. So, we do bracket system dot serializable. So if we look here and we click on core data, I mean, we can't really do much. It's just core data. There I am, a script. Hit save. Still nothing, right? But we have this here. Why isn't it showing up? Well, it's not serializable yet. So if we serialize it, actually want this one because we have a state event here. So if we hit, we go to it, we have global states, but within those states, we have these variables up here because these are, I forget what they're called, but just sort of basic programming stuff. But our new class, state event, those aren't showing up. So we need to serialize that as well. This will also let you save things at runtime more easily. For this stuff, we don't necessarily need it because we're not going to be changing this at runtime. This is, we're creating our actions and things. I don't even know if we need. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things where it's like, because my current script system is shitty. But if we did a new one, it would be really hot, and maybe we'll do it. So let me save all that, go back in here, and now our events show up. This is real ugly. We'll learn to clean it up. We may make a custom editor thing down here. I found that like just doing custom drawers works a lot better. I mean, there's exceptions, like, but you know, we'll get to it when we get to it. So now we have a list of events. We'll element 0, state name. We can just call it neutral. We'll make another one. Let's actually do like, I meant to do a bigger number than that. They're all called neutral now, which we don't necessarily want. Remember, we named that one jump. So now we don't need to care about like what index of each one is what. You know, this is really generic. Now we do it all in here, and we can do it at runtime. So like we can edit our states and our scripts and just get everything perfect, which I didn't do on my last game. Hundreds of states, you know, balancing them all and just nonsense, and none of it could be done at runtime. So it was like clickety clack in here and then run it, and then oh, that doesn't look good. Clickety clack in here and then run it, and yeah. There we have neutral and we have jump. Neutral state, probably don't want much yet. We'll just keep it at 0. We'll get to changing that, but want to get to the meat of, you know, what this is. So here's a little hiccup that's in my own game, but we're gonna fix it right now in this tutorial. We have our script index. Actually gonna change that to just script. It is an index, but we're gonna do some of those custom drawers. So I do call them state scripts, but maybe character script makes more sense. I don't know. I mean, for you all, it probably doesn't matter. It's just in my own game, I call them character scripts because they're on the character object. Be an error somewhere. All right. Anyway, we're actually going to store that in a list. So here's where we might like improve everything. Because now we have this, we don't need to serialize it. String, name. And this is, again, like we don't want it too complicated, but this is where it can get complicated, but in a good way. This is where you can, you know, have some power. We do want an index. It won't matter too much because it's going to be, we might need to reference it, but we probably won't need to. But so now we have to think about like what a script is. At first, all we had is one variable. We were just passing one variable that we called here, right? And we, you know, we look at the script, it's like set as, you know, code here. I'm getting to thinking it starts to get really complicated. It is powerful, but I mean, that's why there's like scripting languages. I don't know, I'm going back and forth. One of the reasons I wanted to do this is so we can, I mean, I guess for now we can just do, no, because we still need, well, okay. This is gonna be really basic at first. I know I got excited about how powerful it could be, but for now we're just gonna do this. So now each of those character scripts also needs to exist somewhere. Character script. Because if we look at our character states, even though it's in the same file here, this is its own separate class. And nowhere in here do we have a script. Because the scripts aren't dependent on like the state or the event. You know, events and states here are dependent. I mean, they are each other. Like they need each other. You know, there's if you don't have any events in your state, then you know what is it? It's nothing. And if you don't have a place to keep your events, then it's just you're just running scripts by itself, like just whenever you want it. Like it's just anyway. I didn't even explain that, but now we have our scripts. And we serialize that if I remember correctly. Global states, so now we have a whole new thing of character scripts. For now, we just have one. And that is not serialized. Oh, they're not public. My bad. Actually, I'm going to show you another one here. Nope, it's just hide in inspector. Hide in inspector. So I want a public index. We might need it. That's the one I mentioned where like we probably don't need it, but we might. But when we're editing, we don't need to know. So what an index is just like where it is in the list. If you set things up a certain way, you don't really ever need to know. So now we have a script here. Call it jump. And we can pass one variable. And again, this is where we can get like way more complicated. And we might get into it. I don't know what's going to happen today. What are we looking like? You really let me go an hour and a half? It seems whack, dude. I don't believe you. I don't believe it. What does it show? Anyway, I know there's a place to look, but this just seems great. That just seems fast. So, or not fast, but short in a good way. So let's finally go back here. And so instead of doing this, it's going to be a little bit different. So for now, one way or the other, you're going to have something like this. You could have something, again, you could have the string-based ones that like, but even then, you're going to have to define stuff. There's a point where you have to connect your scripts to your code. And if you're unfamiliar with that, there is a difference. So, you know, right here we have, you know, have a switch statement. I almost said case again. And, you know, case 0, it does jump. What you do for making like a scripting system, like with looks something like this. Actually, it's probably not a great one because we're not actually doing states. We're doing like script commands. Again, there's a billion tutorials out there, and there's pre-existing scripting systems. You know, it looks something like this. So instead of like passing a single variable like this, you would just pass literal scripts like strings, and it would go through here and it would parse them all. So it would look at your spaces and look at you know, like mathematical commands and see if there's numbers there. That's just something you're gonna have to design yourself. I have a pretty complex, I think, you know, system for my actions, what they can do and stuff. And I just do it like this. I'm not saying you shouldn't do string scripts if that interests you, especially if you're doing events, like global like events, like in your game, like not just character states. For now, we're just gonna do this. I got like a little confused. We have jump, and we have a variable. Do event script. 2. Oops, I thought I hit Y for sure. That was weird. A simple one you can do. Well, I don't. It's hard. And there might even be like better tutorials out there. I just feel like we're dilly-dallying a lot. Kind of have to. We haven't even like been in the game in a minute here. Okay, it didn't save again. Okay, it did. I don't know where we are. All right, argument out of range. Let's see. Really? Sometimes you can double click on it, it goes right to it. But I guess not. Vector object 47. So right here. So yeah, it's looking at the global states. And it's like, well, where's global states? It doesn't exist. Actually does. But it's not going to exist here. So that was the step I was missing. I was trying to get to. Yeah, I know, dude. I'm a doctor too. What we want to do is make a static class. And we're not literally making a static class. I like to call it either game engine. Some people call it game manager. I've also named it the name of the game. Game doesn't really have a name. You know, I could call this like Citadel Deep or whatever. And it's just like the main script that's going to hold like a bunch of static references to things that may or may not be kind of static, but they'll be like read only or whatever. So we got to do. Create an empty object in here. Oh, I could just type it in there, but not come up. Oh. Boy. Instead, we're going to hold a core data in here. And actually, we might want an update. So there's a little trick that I wish I would have learned a few years ago. It's really obvious. You'll see it a lot. Trying to think of another name. But basically, you have a static reference so that all your scripts can access it. Trying to think of like a name. It's not that important. Like core data object. We'll just call it that. It is an object, so like a scriptable object. That's why you can't do it that way. Okay. I was like, can't you just do this? So, I mean, I'm not like familiar. Like, I don't even understand why there's like, I mean, I do, but anyway. So the trick is that you have a public reference that we can assign in the editor. And then we make a static reference to that public reference. So that way we can access it from anywhere. Go in here. Still mad about that? Now we can do game engine core data. And usually I do something like game engine dot current. It kind of depends. This is something you just decide for yourself. Global states, so that's all the same now. So now, we can just do game engine dot core data, and it lets us access anything in our core data. Still mad about that, apparently. Play, see if we get any errors. Definitely got some errors. Okay, cool. That's fine. I mean, that's what I expected. Can we call this game engine? Game engine, go ahead and add that. And then, so this is going to be, you'll find that you want a default scene. Like the new Unity method is to additively just keep adding scenes. We have this like default scene, which will often have your camera and your character. I mean, it kind of depends, but for sure it's going to have your game engine-y type stuff. You can have static classes that just sort of like run by themselves, but this is sort of the preferred method. And I used to not do that. I did the other way because I was like, this is kind of weird. It just seems flimsy or something. I can't think of the word. It seems hacky, but kind of what they want you to do. We're going to grab our core data, grab it here. So now when we access core data, now we have a static reference to it, like anywhere we want, and we don't have to load it. That's what I used to do. I used to have like a scriptable object, but I'd have to load it, and like loading it was like really complicated, but now it's like you just do this. Super easy. Now we're not getting any errors. Still have this going on, but our jump isn't working because we're going to turn that into a state. So I know that was complicated, but it's taking us a long time to come around, but it's going to be good. Excuse me. So let's click on our core data, go to jump, and our old variable was like 0.25. We'll just keep it there. Let's make it a little bit stronger for fun. So now we got to start making this all work for realies. Do event script, jump. It might work. I might not have even. Oh, so we've set up the script. So we actually want that to not be in the inspector right here. Well, I gotta think for a minute. Because these are like static scripts. In the events, that's where we want to pass our variables. So yeah. Again, when you make this a little more advanced, you'll probably want like a list of variables, because like a different each different command might have, jump only needs one variable necessarily. It might need others, but something else would need like a more advanced thing that you pass to it. Might need to pass some flags and a bunch of different values. For now, we'll just keep it like this. Gonna do something a little special here. There might be a way better way to do this, but please. Why? So we're making a list of names based on the character scripts. And this is going to be your first, if it's new to you, your first foray into doing custom drawers, and you'll see how rad it is. So, names. Whoops. Please. We're gonna iterate through that. We could have done like for each. Let's do it. You don't necessarily need the variable. String n. I'm so confused now, dude. Yeah, see? No, that's wrong. I have to do it that way. Oh my gosh. Because I need a specific index. Alright. Why is less than 0? Wow. That went on way too long. Names I equals character scripts I dot name. I might need to pop into my other game real quick. So what this is doing is that we have a static reference to... Did I not do it that way? Oh, this is the core data static that we can just grab it. So this is going to create a list of names for that looks at all the scripts that we've made and just makes a list of them basically. It's important that you have no repeat names because they will be omitted. Not here. This will get them all, but through one of the custom drawers. So might be faster to just... forget how you do it because there's like a two-step process. But it's really cool. Because basically what's going to happen is that when we go to our scripts here, it's getting a little complicated, so we're going to do like... instead of calling this jump, I'm just going to call it velocity y. Because one of our states is called jump. Sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth here. I am going to go ahead and crack open my game because I feel like it's faster than... I'm doing it. Really only been streaming that long? So, I'm trying to think what has that. Oh, treasure boxes do. Another instance of this, opening up. Go to our treasure chest. And have it on here. Sorry about this. I thought I could just drop in. What has them? There it is. So I made my own custom one called indexed item. And it's a property attribute. So that's what, like, when we're doing those like brackets, you know, we do like system.serializable or hide in the inspector. We're making our own. So like hide in the inspector just makes it so it skips drawing it, right? But now we can decide how it gets drawn. Because you may notice like when we were clicking through this, it's like we have to drop this down and then make a new one, you know, increase the size, and then it's element, and then it has this and that. To improve like your, you know, your development time and your development quality of life, you make your own, you know, full-on editor windows if you need, you know, in Citadel Deep. I have this for my actions. I'm hoping that we have something a little cleaner than this when we're going through this tutorial. So. But it is robust, so. Weird. Our index item. Attribute. So we're basically going to do the same thing. So what this is doing is that anytime we have like a list of something that has an index, we're going to draw it differently. I'm going to go ahead and just copy this. What I'm actually looking for. So you have to do like, kind of have to do two. You have to do one that's like, you have to do like the info, which isn't that much, and then you have to actually do the drawing. Actually gonna just go in here, create a new folder called editor. So whenever you're doing any sort of like editor changes, you need to have this folder because it knows, that's just a simple way that Unity knows. Saves you a lot of time doing something more complicated. Just knows where to look for those kinds of scripts. So like in this editor one, you know, you'll have all these like special scripts, like how to draw certain things. Oh my god. So I was thinking about just dragging them over, but we should learn how to do it, right? So this is the one in the editor. Where's the other one? I am just gonna copy it. Well, I guess, see, that's why I was just looking to just copy it over, dude. Nothing I can do, dude. Drag this. Or no, sweet. Drag it in the script. So I'm still holding it down. You just drag it. So now I have the indexed item attribute. Go in here, reload all. And we're going to type in our own. So this is an enumerator. Basic, it's kind of like an int. You can actually make them so they are full-on ints. I think I can do them like that or something. But they're basically enumerations are like values that have like names associated with them. I don't know. You could look up what enumerations are yourself. So here it's just like if you have a limited set of like, I don't know how to explain it, but like what I had here for my game is like, you know, I often have a list of skills that I need to display, so we'll do skills. Same with the weapons, inventory items. What we have so far are scripts, and we have you have events. have states. Gosh, I couldn't think of it. So for sure we have scripts and states. So now we have this attribute. I haven't applied it to anything yet. I just want to make sure it runs okay and isn't mad. Sweet. So we'll go to editor. If there's any comments. Sorry if there's comments, they're not showing up. And I always stream at a weird time, like Wednesday in the middle of the day. It's just my day off, quote unquote. That's when I do other work. Now we're going to pop that open. And it's a lot different. I think we should do this one from scratch. We'll copy over a lot, but this one there's a little bit more to learn. So go to our editor folder, right click, create C# script. What did I name it? Item drawer. Sorry. Create indexed item drawer. So we made the attribute and we made the drawer, just like I mentioned before. And we have sort of the code behind it, you know, the sort of variables and constituencies that this sort of custom draw is going to need, and then we need to actually draw it. A little. It is a custom property drawer. Has to, you know, inherit, colon is, from property drawer. I'm just going to copy all that because it's quick, and then we'll go through it. All that in there. So we do need some more usings. I think it's Unity editors. Whenever you're using Unity editor, you cannot reference that at runtime. So you can have things like in your main code, like if, you know, using Unity editor, I forget how you do it, and it'll omit that if it's in editor mode or not. But generally, you can't have all this, or you can't be using the Unity editor stuff. It, you know, it's just for the editor. So again, you know, this is just for us for creating the game. It is really dope in the end, so that's why we're doing it. But, so now we use that. It's a custom property drawer of indexed item attribute. So that's the one that we made. So we needed a reference for that first, right? And it is a property attribute. Base class to derive custom property attributes from. That's pretty redundant. And then the actual drawer, you know, knows to do that. And that it is a property drawer. So what a property drawer is called, you know, it's an editor script. So it sort of does things a little bit differently. You have public override void on GUI. So it's going to do this instead. Normally this is called, like any property in here, whoops. You know, whether it's, you know, this string or this, you know, it's pretty basic. It just, based on where it is in its sort of nested list, it'll indent, says the name of the property, tabs over this much, and then has what that value is and has you know, editing box for us. But when we do this, we're gonna change that. We're just gonna copy this part because this one's pretty standard. So this is just some basic GUI stuff that you'd have to know a lot more about Unity editor to, get into. So the label, we have the actual serialized property. Again, it gets a little bit complicated if you're not familiar with serialization, and like it's really powerful though, especially when you're doing like your save files and stuff. I recommend you get into it eventually. But it's basically just taking this stuff. We see it here and we kind of think of it as like this is where it exists, like in here. But it's in the code. It's in the computer somewhere. Just grabbing properties and throwing it at us, and drawing it a certain way. And now we're gonna draw it like our own way. Sorry for all the back and forth here. So this is from one of the built-in tutorials that I watched, or maybe it's the not built-in, but one that I watched, either Unity or somewhere. First, get the attribute since it contains the range for the slider. I don't actually use a slider, but we want this. I don't know why they have it like that. Comment that out, and it's like not mad anymore. Yeah, so it looks like you have to do that. A little weird. I mean, you have to do it. I'm not quite sure. It seems redundant, but what do I know? But this is just a way to get that attribute, I guess, for reference. Oh, because we don't have... So, it says attribute here. And it, we don't see that anywhere. So that's just like a built-in Unity one. So we're making a reference to it. And we're making it an indexed item attribute. So that's our custom one. So now it's going to look at the stuff that we made over here. So now we have, and we call it just indexed item. So now we have that. We actually have like the properties of it and stuff. So now we can do stuff with it. Because we need indexed item.type. And here's where the enumeration, that thing I couldn't explain very well, can come in handy. Because we do case indexed item attribute dot indexed item type. So that's what we defined here. It can only be one or two things, and it's in like English or whatever code you're coding in, or language you're coding in, like linguistic language. And so it limits the scope and makes it just a lot easier to read and code. We're gonna do one for each. So it looks at the indexed item attribute and whatever we pass to it. So go to our inventory. We're gonna need this. So now we need to actually throw that attribute somewhere. So like when we were doing this over here, where is it? The last one I picked. Like we did system.serializable, and we did hide in inspector. That's that attribute that we can just throw on the next property, and it'll draw a certain way or do other things. So we have our own, and it's all pretty much held in our core data. Well, not quite. So what's the first one we want to do? We want to do whenever a character script is drawn. So we're going to go to... Can we do it here? See, that's what I thought. So we have to do it like... here. Sorry about that. So the script is held just as an integer because it's a reference index. Because we have a big list, and we just want to reference that static list. We don't want a ton of instances of whole heaps and heaps of data. Like we want to have this core data that we look at. We generally don't change it too much unless we're like saving our game and stuff. We just take that info. Dude, I forgot I make tea. Sorry, I just saw some Earl Grey sitting next to me and I forgot I made it. Well, that's bitter. It's good though. So before it was just a value, right? So it's pretty mad because we didn't finish that. But before it was just like um, these ones, right? It's just a simple value in there. But when we're done, gonna get hype. So here's the main thing right here. So when you start doing custom editors, you'll do stuff like this, like editor GUI, and we'll do an int pop-up, which is like a built-in sort of like, it's an integer, but instead of displaying 0 or just the integer and you type it in, when you click on it, it'll just bring up a list that you can limit in your own code. And we're going to limit by what we've actually made. So that way you click on it, just have a nice list, and you can organize it with like slashes and stuff. So you can do like enemy / all their moves and then stuff like that. So we're just going to grab that. We're going to change it a bit in ours. We've already set it here, but it's drawn whack right now, so you need to actually have it draw properly. So scripts. You'll see here that I actually had like a reference because it's kind of slow. We'll actually probably want to do that instead of iterating constantly. Because when we made this here, it's like it's making a new list every frame. And if we have multiple instances of that script, right, like, or that script reference where we can choose a script, like we have a bunch of different events open and there's tons of scripts for each event, then it's going to get slow, but we will optimize last, as they say. So ours is stored somewhere else. It's in core data, which we can get. Oh, excuse me, game engine. Core data. Script names. Bop. Go ahead and save that. Wasn't super happy. Oh, I don't think this is saving. We need to update this too. Yeah, it's mad. I did something wrong. We're gonna figure out what. So yeah, that might be an issue. What do I do here? Oh, that's why we load it. Cool. So we should actually do that. There might be a better way to do it, but we're gonna do it this way. So up here, we're gonna have a reference to our core data. Core data. And then when it's drawing, if core data equals null, we're gonna load our core data. So even though we have a reference to it at all times, like in our game via having this empty game object here through the game engine, we still need it in our code. And this will let us reference that. You can have stuff like this, so this is how we're going to load it. You can have stuff like that automatically. I used to, in my editor, it's like I'd open the editor, and then I'd have to like load like the current data, and I don't know. There's probably better ways to do it, and I don't do it that way anymore. We're going to do it more like this, but anyway. So ignore this part. For each string GUID, I forget what that means. It's just it's the ID. It's like where it is. It's just a string though. Um, and this is another Unity editor only thing where you use the asset database, which lets you look at your assets and just find assets. This can be slow as your game gets bigger. That's why we only want to do it if we haven't loaded it yet. That's what this check is. And we're looking here is one that we're not looking for. We're looking for our core data. So T colon is like tagged. I don't know like maybe the exact parlance, but you can. I would just like to mention that you can do it in your editor. So if you do T light, anything with the light script on it will bring up like those will stay. That's all that's in the hierarchy now. This is a huge complex scene, tons of objects. It just lets you search things and you can do it. A lot of times that stuff can be used throughout Unity, like in more ways than you might think. So when we do load asset at path, it needs a GUID. Again, I forget what that's called, but it's like where it is in the well, it wants an asset path, but it wants you use this, so you turn that GUID to an asset path where it's just like where it is in your directory of your asset folder basically. And again, we're not looking for that. We're looking for core data. So what that does, for each core data, so what this exactly is doing is it looks in your whole project. When you do find assets, it'll find anything that's a core data thing. If you did like character, state, if those were something, it has to be a scriptable object though. It has to be an asset file. I don't know. You might be able to load these. I don't know what it would bring up necessarily, but for sure it's going to look in there. We only have that one core data that we made. If you ever need to back stuff up, Control D, data back. I used to do that too, or like backup constantly. Like each time I loaded it, basically. That was because my load and save was like really whack. I mean, you should back up your stuff anyway, and by other means. But, so we look for each core data. In this case, it's going to bring up 2, so we're actually going to go ahead and delete that because we don't know what order it's going to like find them in. Because it's going to bring a list of like all those that it finds. And just right away, we're just going to say, hey, the one that you found. And it's like, well, which one? We're going to make sure there's only one. Otherwise, you'd have to sort this somehow. So load asset at path, it's again, this is stuff you can look up, but it basically loads it and turns it into something because it's all just data, right? It's just all zeros and ones. Turns it into something. Again, it uses that GUID to like sort of like I don't even know how to explain it, but it's just like a more abstract way to determine where it is in your directory. Turns that into a directory, and then load asset at path does that actual thing. Oops. Still mad? Yeah, loading. All saved. I'll click on record data again, and it's still mad. What's it mad at? Like this didn't like save properly. Close. Yeah, see? Not saving sometimes. I'm not sure why. Mad. It's loading good. Didn't show the loading symbol, so I wasn't sure. Oh, it's still mad. So line 26. What I want, right? What's a string? String array? What's the strings? Whoops. My mouse has been double clicking. I'm sorry, I know this happens a lot when you're doing. Oh, see, now it's like, oh, I'm nice. I think it's just not saving for some reason. I don't know, this whole project has been whack. Like problems I've never seen before. Anyway, here it is. Sorry, it was like a anticlimactic way of showing it. But now like we have our events here, and so instead of having to like memorize like what each script is, we can just go bippity bop. So if we go for our character scripts, again, this is tied directly to this. This is what we're editing, and these just sort of save automatically. I know there can be issues where it like doesn't save, and I'm kind of like trying to remember like how and why that. But generally, if you're using your like a custom editor window where you're like totally redoing all this, that's where you have to sort of like be wary about whether it's saving or not. But generally, even if you're using custom item drawers, property drawer, excuse me, if you're doing it by just clicking on this and like doing the inspector window, it should be saving properly. So let's make a few more scripts. So another common one, velocity xz. So that's like our lateral velocity. And then we can have like, and again, these are like scripts. These aren't states. We might want like, I can't think of someone that I have in my other game. Like do a VFX or a sound effect. Do that. Do sound effect. So now we go to our states. Or jump state. Maybe, so these are our events. Let's do like another event. It'll also start from 0, and maybe we'll play a sound effect. You know what I mean? So these don't actually do anything yet, but again, it's like now, like we just updated down here, and now it only shows that stuff. Specifically, if you don't remember, whoops, I was just looking at it. Get script names is how it's getting that. So you'll maybe want to there's different ways you go about it. You could make this more generic. So instead of like doing like the built-in name string, you could just you can have like a switch case where like, I mean, maybe we'll get to it, but you can make this even more generic. And again, it's a little slow when we have all these open. Go ahead and close this now, I think. We have lots of events open. It's getting that list every frame for each one of these. That's a little slow. So we'll see here, just for editor's sake, the global state's current time, current state. Yeah, so we don't even want that anymore. Don't need that one. So now it's just like our states are merely a collection of events and a length. So that's really going to clear, and it has a name. Oh, it has an index. That's what I wanted to hide. So hopefully this will show like just good practice on like for developing as well. Oh. Anybody in the chat? No, that's all right. If there's people there, I'm sorry if you're chatting. I don't remember which one shows stats, maybe 2 viewers. There's people listening to me. 2.5 hours. Oh, okay, that's it. I feel like this is good stuff though. Like sometimes I feel like I drone on for like 3 hours and it's like could have stopped listening like 30 minutes in, but or watching, I guess. Pretty pleased with this. We have our states here. We have our scripts. So now, we have our jump. Oh, that was a little mad. Mad for some reason. Like really mad. What's happening? Okay, why are you mad, my man? I wonder if like I wonder if that's not saving, so maybe I do need to like man, that's like a really easy way to do it. But I feel like it's mad for another reason, like this is not coming up anymore. Okay, now it is. Description the same. This is like really mad. It's like it's lagging and I don't know what the deal is. Hmm. This need to be public. Might keep it in memory better. We shouldn't have to be clicking over here. That makes you think what else wrong. And it's getting mad whenever I dudes, I'm sorry. Here's what the deal is. Let's go ahead and just close that out. Let's see. Click on that. So that there's something wrong with that. I'm trying to think, how did I even so it really doesn't like this. I don't know what to do though. Really mad at that. Hey, what reference though? So it says object reference not set to an instance. That makes me think that the core data isn't loaded. But it should be. Might have to load up that project again. I haven't had that much trouble with. I mean, when I first did a, I mean, probably I'm lying. If I go back and think about it, it's like, oh, maybe I had similar problems. And here I do it different. This code's wrong. I mean, I do this same code like every time. Hmm. No problem. Does that matter? Still mad. Maybe I'm in the errors room. It's not saying the index is out of range here. Property, like, missed something. Sorry, y'all. Let's skip ahead in a minute. Or if you're watching from YouTube. Really don't know what the issue is. Things is like it seemed like it was working right away, like it right at first. Maybe I need to serialize all these. I might need to. They are. If something too, yeah. What? Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. So when I mentioned how, like, I was trying to reference this and I was like, oh right, it's only gonna work at runtime, but I never changed that. Like I changed how I was getting it, but I never actually changed that that's the one I'm referencing. Now I'm getting the one that I load myself. Oh my god. Sorry, y'all. There we go. No lag, no anger. All the data's still saved. Okay, where are we? Oh, that was fun. We did it. We made it out on top. Hopefully. Run quick. Move around. X, nothing happens. Alright. So, back to the beginning. If we look at our scripts, velocity Y, so let's actually change it. Again, this is one where you're just gonna have to, there's gonna be a point where you have to make that jump. There's probably a more generic way you could go about this here. But you're gonna have to like find these properties somehow. It's like what's doing what to what, right? And so you're gonna have to do it through scripts, or I was a little crazy when I very first started this project. I made all of my, this might be totally crazy or not that crazy, but I definitely ended up undoing it, and it was big and painful. But all of my properties were stored in a list, so that way I could just do like, how we do this with our script in an event. I could select properties that were just, because all my properties were in a list. And there are ways to do that. I don't know. And that's what a lot of scripting programs do, languages do. But we're going to have to just do our own. I think it's just, if you don't want to deal with scripts in that way, like scripting like Python and stuff, you can do this. it just seems a little hacky, and it is, but in the end, I think it works really well. So what was our other script? Velocity XZ. So actually, well, there's a few ways you can. Front velocity. The one I use a lot. And velocity XZ. So the difference is like when you're doing like a 3D game, front velocity only takes a single value, and it does it based on how the character is facing. Velocity XZ is a way for me to just dampen lateral movement. So like if I'm doing, because there might be a move where I like jump forward, and I want that jump to have sort of a certain velocity and friction to it, but the like forward momentum I may want to like stop or like dampen a bunch. So that way there's just, in my own experience, there's you're doing velocity XZ a lot and you're doing velocity Y a lot. Because XZ is just sort of like your lateral movement, you know what I'm saying? Like in a 2D game, it would just be like X. It's just how a lot of games work. If you're doing like a flight game, then you're probably going to be doing like all your velocities at once, like all your X, Y, and Z. You know what I'm saying? So back to our character object. When you're lost, just hit the play button. So left and right still works. Jump is not working. So that's our next step. So we need to make like a move list. So this might seem redundant, but it's like this is like your actual like command set for a character. I'm trying to think, because even the way I implement my game currently, it's like I don't love it. The problem is like if we go to our character object, we do our input, right? This is all really hard coded, right? We do start state 1 when we hit the jump button, right? We want that to be a lot more generic so we can just do data, and that way we can swap out moves like if we need to. So yeah, I mean, let's just do it. Again, you could be doing like new script files for this each time, but these are all pretty small, so we might change these names. So what is a move list? Move list is like just your set of commands. You could call it like your command map. That'd be another way you could put it. You just do command. An easy way to do it. So let's just call it that for now. And so there's going to be the input string. There's going to be the state. And so this is player specific. Yeah, I think in my game I call them input commands. But it starts to get redundant because I have like move list and I have like move list input command, and like a lot of stuff. But let's call it that for now. It's a list of those. And then this will also, gosh darn it, Reaper, I will pay for you, just not now. Sorry, I'm hitting Control Shift S. Buddy, really want this to be separate. Not always, but in this case. Or data. Now we have commands. Not really filled with anything yet. And if you remember, there's a few ways to go about it. We could make this a discrete list, you know, a pop-up like we did before. But we definitely will have our own list of states. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And here's where you get generic, because you're going to be repeating this a lot if you have a lot of different type of indexed items. Global states is kind of a whack term. Let's call them character states. It is global, but global states is almost like, you know, stuff in the game, like weather and stuff. I don't use a term like that. Fix that. Go to our item drawer. We do basically the same thing. Again, I know I say again just all the time, every video. But get the state names this time. This could be made generic is what I'm getting at. Instead of having these like specific ways. As it goes down the line, you may want it to be a little bit different based on like different sort of indexed items. Or you may want to have one that's just like player scripts and you sort it, and so it'll only show like the player scripts. Or excuse me, the player states. So you'll see, this is still not doing anything. We need to actually what is it? There it is. It's got states. So now, just like before, a list of states. We don't have any states. Oh, be very careful. Ooh, yikes. Ooh. When you rename stuff, that's why I back up data a lot, right? And we were only a little bit into this, but all our character states are gone. What? It's because we renamed it, so the property changed, and it's like, that doesn't exist anymore. We changed it from character state, you know, from global states to character states, and it didn't like it. I mean, it didn't dislike it. It's just doing it again. Gosh, now I'm used to clicking on that. What the hell? So mad. Why does this keep happening? All serialized. I'm not sure that matters, but edit it out. Sorry. It's like the same problem. I don't know what it's doing. And why is it only doing it on that one? Get state names. Knew it. Knew it was something dumb like that. Sorry. We're getting through it together, right? Now the cool stuff. Oh, right. We deleted all our character states. Well, they're all unnamed. Jump. And here's where it's like actual like states. We'll do like a dash. Probably won't get into a text today. Do merge. Like, I don't know. What else can you do? Dodge. Now if we go here, we can select all those. And if you wanted, when you put that slash there, the /, you can sort them. So now it's like, we'll just have all the player stuff up here, and then if we need enemy stuff, we'll go here, and you might even have like a sub thing like skeleton. Misspelled on purpose. Slime. Attack 1. If you wanted to use a naming convention that was a little more generic, if you wanted to attach these to your state machine for your animators, it would be helpful. Maybe that's beyond what you're used to. Or how do I spell slime? But now, you know, you can keep these all separate. It's just a way you can sort, which is cool. Now, oh my gosh, trying so hard to get this jump to actually do something. Mirror events up, so our states, all that stuff got erased. Sorry. In frame 0, do velocity y with 0.3. Should work already. No. Oh, there it goes. I don't know why it didn't work before. So one script that I use a lot is called like stick move or cam relative move. We'll just call it stick move for now. So that's like just gonna do movement based on the control stick, right? So now we can finally go in here. Oh, we were working on that move list, right? Should do that first. You can see this starts to get a bit messy, so then you'd want to maybe make this a little more robust where you might have separate windows or you have tabs here, like buttons basically. Like, you know how we have like this pop up here? You could choose what to display. Do you know what I mean? So that way this stays a lot cleaner. But even collapsing them works pretty well. So our command list. So let's do at least 5 for now, but we probably only need 1. So jump. So what we're doing here, you could do it different ways. Again, you could have a pop-up for just any pre-existing buttons that you might have. Because the input system uses strings, you could just have this all be the same. Like you could just use strings and it's just gonna do this. So when we input jump, we do jump. Let's see here. Input dash, we do dash. Here things can get wildly different based on the game. It's just, you'll have to figure it out. So, yeah, so we'll leave that open for now. Game engine of character object. So our hope, again, is that we do that input. If the input equals the input that we specify here, then we do the action that we specify there. So let's go in here. So how it works is that we do update input, and we do update state, But we need to update our command first. We can stop doing that. I don't know. Update command. So it's a little redundant. You know, our input is. So I guess let's just do that. When we have an input buffer, there's going to be the need for an extra step here, but instead we're going to do this. So instead, if input dot get button down. Here it gets a little whack. It's like I tend to just brute force everything. I don't have a problem. Like there's no slowdown. It can just be a little weird. So let's do for each. Hopefully we don't need to. Input command in engine dot core data dot commands. The name. If input dot get button down c dot input string. That means if it's true. Oh, forgot. See there? Then start state c dot state. See it all coming together now? I'm feeling pretty proud of this. So now we don't necessarily need this one. This one is a special case. Movement stuff like this is we're gonna have to actually store it more, just like I'll show you. And so let's go ahead and we're gonna go back. I need to know which one it is. So 0 and 1. So to keep things simple at first, just to differentiate, we're going to go ahead and do that. That one for 0. And then let's just do joystick button 1. Call it dash. So now, you know, the Xbox 360 controller, when we hit B, it's going to be dash. And then in our own data, we hit dash, we're going to do dash. And so what does dash do? Go to our states, go to dash. Currently doesn't have any events. So we're going to go ahead and add at least one. And again, for simplicity's sake, we're just going to do just a bigger jump. So now, if everything works okay, it's mad. So we're going to need a little consistency if c dot input string 2. So we're going to ignore it if there's nothing in there, because we have a, you know, if we shortened our list, we could also avoid it. But just in case, you know, if we have a working list of different stuff, then we want it to be usable. So our left and right isn't working anymore. Big jump's working, little jump's working. So I'm hitting different buttons, and now, you know, we're getting different stuff. The left and right isn't working anymore. Oh, I edited it out. Okay. Commented it out, excuse me. Even, you know, let's actually do that. You know, it's like, hey, you know, our short hop should be more like this, and this should actually be like that. So now, here, a little short hop. That's kind of useless. Let's do 1.5. And with frictions and stuff, it can be hard to, you know, double can be a lot more than double. In like actual height you're getting in the end. We have 2 here, and then 3 like gets us like way up there. Just the nature of frictions and velocities and things like that. Already we're looking pretty cool. we need to make a neutral state. And there's going to be at least one special event in here. We're going to start to see that, like, default just use 60 frames. We're going to need a new thing where it loops. So we're going to go to our states. So we have a start and an end. Well, it's our events, sorry. We have our index, so we don't even need, we have a name and a length. And then public bool loop. That way, if the state gets past its length, which we haven't even dealt with yet, it will just loop automatically if we needed to. So the neutral state, we want it to loop. Now we need to make a new script. We have stick move, we already have it. But we need to actually make it. And here's where it gets annoying, because it's like we do need to, you know, make sure it's the same index. The stick move is 3. So in here we do case 3. We call it stick move. We can actually, this is a pretty player specific one. We could send the variable, I suppose. But you'd probably want to have, well, if only the player's doing it, maybe you don't. I was gonna say you might want to have like a character variable that's like your movement speed. For now, we'll just do this. And actually what I would do is do like move speed times that. It's going to depend on your game. Like if there's a lot of variables where like your movement speed can change based on the environment or based on, you know, power-ups and things like that. So see, that's actually not what we want. This is just going to increase the velocity by that. Want this. Need a little more robust, and then later on we're going to do it based on the camera. So we're going to do the local variable, call it move, and I don't know, maybe we don't need. Let me think. Oh, I'm just realizing I had this to equals, not plus equals. So anyway, it's not that important, but it kind of made me a liar in a couple of points there. So there we're just making it plus or minus. If we're not pressing anything, it's going to be 0. And then the velocity plus equals move times move speed times the pow. We also need to set up that loop. So I got to think how we end our state. So for sure, I know we want it to. It's starting to get redundant. No, I think this is all right because we for sure need this and need that. We're not really using this one, but cheat a little, make it -1. So I'm just not sure where to put it. Let's just start typing. So if current state time is greater than, and it depends if you want greater than or equal. It's going to depend where we put it in here. So what we're doing is, and you may want to make it like every update, just have a current state that's the actual state, like hold a reference to that, but it's up to you. Length and state. So now it's like already I want a reference to it. So. My current state equals so what we want to check is if my current state dot loop, just do oops. A loop state. And else in state. Excuse me. What's your problem? Oh my god! I like. So we're updating. You know, our current state time goes up. If it goes past a certain length, then it's going to loop if it's a looping state, else it's going to end state, which is just going to put us back at state 0. It's a little, you know, I do current state equals 0, and then current state's a little not the best way to code it probably, but it's not bad. Just we can do a little messing around here to show that it's working. Stick moves. So this is the other thing I wanted to do. We want this throughout the whole neutral state. So in neutral, we have start and end for this event, which is the stick move event. It would be nice if this was like right here. Yeah, just something to think about. I want to try and just move it up there in the code, but I'm worried that if I change the property, then it will delete all these. So we'll just stick with it for now. So we need to update how our events check as well, because right now they're only one shots. So if current state equals event.start, then it'll do it. So this will only work on the first frame. So every 60 frames, it will, you know, let us move. But we need it as long as that's going on. So we can do it. Again, this is a little hacky. Listen for now. this isn't ideal. There's problems that you can run into down the line, but for just to get things moving along, we'll do this. Hopefully this all works. Stick move variable. It's going to multiply by 0. So left and right, probably not going to do much yet. So let me jump loop. So first of all, let's do this. So it's not working. Let's double check everything. Stick move. 3. Check that. Script to script 3. Check that that's actually what's getting passed. Event.script. Stick move. Our move speed is value. For some reason, like nothing's working. What? Through it all. Data input. Hit F12 to go to the where the thing you have highlighted was created, like set in the code. So it's like we do update input here. Let's hit. If you shift F12, you can see all references to it. So let's go to a reference. Double click F12. That'll take you to it. Input. Get button down. Equal to the input string in all of our commands. Dash neutral. So I mean that was all working before. Start state. Update our input. Then update our state. I feel like that is kind of like messing things up right here. Check our capsule and see what our state time is doing. So it is looping. We're in that neutral state. None of our inputs are working. I don't know why. Yeah. Current state. Where are you at? Equals new state. Didn't matter too much, but and the only thing I really changed was this one here. Not sure what I did. This jump. So let's check jump. Start and end. Good. I mean, that shouldn't matter. This is the events. Now we'll take it out, see what happens. If I hold right every 60 seconds, it lets us go. Or every 60 frames, excuse me. So I'm just thinking about this wrong. Oh my god! If y'all saw it, you get $100. An event.end. You'll get $100 from me though. Get lots of credit though. Lots of just like love credit. So still doing that, huh? Oh gosh. Greater than or equal to 1 day. Oh, I also wanted to mention that there's like the delegate event system in Unity. Um, and it's awesome. I just didn't really know about it. I'm jumping to the event state, but or excuse me, I'm starting the jump state, and that's why I'm like pausing. But the jump's not happening. I'm pretty sure I know why. Like we start it, and then let's see, do our input. We'll start a state. Like current state equals the new state. New state time, current state time. Under input, get our state. Get our state events. Should work. That. Pretty sure is the reason. And you need to like frame that out a little bit better. Yeah, now everything's working. Notice like the left and right doesn't work except on that one. What's happening is so when I do the big jump, I can move around still. Because that state only lasts, call it dash was like big jump, for 0 frames. So immediately it just switches back to neutral. It's probably in there for 1 frame. But that's why, you know, when we're in our neutral state, we can do the stick move. So do left and right here. Dampen that by half. Now, do that. But when we do like the regular one, everything, like I'm holding left and then I jump and it just stops. That's another reason why you, like, I have these like strong frictions. So I have to sort of change how your jumps work. You'll want some code in there that like hold your forward momentum, or you'll want friction that's different based on the state, explicitly like a character state, or things like whether you're grounded or not. That's up to you. Or you can just have the stick move on there, dampen it, maybe increase it so you go faster when you're jumping. Speedrun videos. Go ahead and set this to loop. Just to show you. Am I gonna do it to me? Huh? The looping is okay. Put that. I can't believe I did that. I knew it. Like I knew it. Like before I even like came in here, I was like, I bet I did that. Okay. Most states you don't want to loop, but the neutral state you do. And if by default, when any state ends, it goes back to neutral, then it kind of doesn't matter. But you know, it's nice to have the. Now it's like looping itself. We don't want that unless we do a big jump and it breaks us out of it. So hopefully, like you're all starting to understand the power in this. I thought there was like a couple more things I wanted to do, but I think this covers a lot of it. Don't know if we'll be back next week, but the next video we'll continue this. We're gonna really focus on next time is like the how and when we can do stuff, because now we need to have we need to limit our jumps. We need to make sure we can't always just cancel out of certain things whenever we want. We need to have certain conditions for that, which will be fun. Hopefully clean this up. Yeah, and I hope this all find you well, like how to set this up with the core data, and just having all this in here. I wish I would have known this a long time ago, because the time I spent just making this video, I spent, I don't want to say years, but years on just setting up. And again, you know, it just comes with practice and knowledge, so that's why it comes quickly. I feel like we were in the middle of something. I'm gonna do that real quick first. Not sure. But I guess just to show you, like, our event, you know, we're not even gonna hit pause or anything. In our jump state, you know, this last 60 seconds, let's say. Let's just go ahead and add another event. Here, during the whole thing, so on frame 0, actually, so let's change this so it's on frame 5. To actually make a script that makes this so the end can't be less than it. There's going to be a bit of delay. We're actually going to make it bigger. This is just for illustrative purposes. This isn't a great jump. I mean, you may want to, like, Sekiro. Well, I'm not. Hot take. I don't love Sekiro. I mean, it was pretty cool, but. And then from beginning to end, actually not beginning, from 10 to 0 to the end, we're going to have stick move. And we have 0.5 on the regular one. Let's keep it at 1 now. We move around, right? Moving left to right. I hit jump. Stick move isn't going to be a thing anymore. You know, the neutral state, not there. We're only going to be in the jump state. Stick move isn't there anymore until frame 10. And it's actually going to be stronger because our neutral one, 0.5. So we're going to be able to move more rapidly, but we're going to have to wait 10 frames. And then also on that first frame, when we hit 10, we're going to jump. We're going to bounce up our velocity. So if I hold right and jump, and the jump isn't working, it just like ruined everything. Oh, there it went. You see that? So, I mean, that's not great, that delay, but it's just to be illustrative that, like, already we have a really simple scripting system, but that we can test at runtime. We undo this, all this stays and it saves. Just really cool. Maybe we want the opposite, that maybe we can hold that, but it gets dampened a lot. Like, so we're running, we can jump, and that's kind of whack. For some reason we're getting some interference when we're like doing both. Not sure. That's just something we're gonna have to figure out. I'm gonna mark that in here. So when we do our update events, so we're really gonna focus on like the command list and like when and how you can enter the states. So here, you may notice that we go through the entire list. And for one, we may want to break, but we don't necessarily want to do that. What we want to do is, instead of start state, is hold on to that state till we get to the end, and then we decide whether we can cancel or not. So continue from here. Note to myself in the future. State until out of command list, and then check if you can cancel or not. Hopefully I don't remember all that. But I mean, I think this is pretty rad already. Like, I'm just like thinking, oh, I updated all that. Already that's solving some problems. Like, I'm not getting any input drops. So that's kind of what was happening. It was like starting other states that don't necessarily exist yet, for whatever reason. You know, that's like a really horrible jump. Like a game like that would be just ugh. So dead. Frame 0, we can jump right away and also do the stick move right away. Wasn't working first. A little bit slower. And then you could even we can do a new loop that like, what you want is like a jump and a neutral and an aerial state, but actually you'd want aerial to be a substate of neutral. So that's another thing we'll get into. Probably dragging on a little bit too long here. It's kind of ended faster than I thought. I was like, oh yeah, kind of covers everything we want to cover, and it turned out like I feel like I learned things. I know it didn't seem like maybe I did, but when I first started my current project, I had everything in one like data file like this, and I was like, that's whack. And like part of it was because I wanted to be able to like copy certain things. So, like let's say I had an event. I made like all my scripts and states and events and stuff. Eventually I made them each into their own scriptable object. It was nice because I could just hit Control D and I could copy over and make a new state, but it just like it requires so much organization and it's just driving me crazy. So I really recommend this. There are ways now that I've learned more about serialization and saving and things like that. You can just make copy commands that don't even require you to. I mean, you could do your own hard-coded ones where it's like, okay, make a new state, state.0, new states dot length equals the previous one, or the one you're copying from, and you do that for each property. But learning about serialization and JSON stuff, you can do it a lot more easily, and it's awesome. So I really recommend just having it in this core thing here. And if you've used like RPG Maker before, you'll see that they only have like one or two. It's like, I think it's like one is like your save files and one is like your editor file for the project, and maybe like a project file, something like that. Not that that necessarily makes it right because RPG Maker did it, but anyway. How long were we in there? 3 hours? Well, hopefully y'all stick around. I'm gonna go there. This is pretty dope in my opinion. I don't know if we'll get into making a better scripting system next time. Probably focus on just the different events and flags, and because like I mentioned, there's gonna be states that aren't a part of your explicit like finite state machine that you want, like being aerial or being in hit stun. Like depending on the game, neutral might be different than hit stun. Some games it isn't. Like in games that I've made, it's like a lot of states are just in neutral, and then you can only do certain things. Depending on the flag, like aerial and how many jumps you have left or whatever. So it would be nice though at this point, or for the next video, to maybe model a character really quick. So it's possible that we'll do a quick modeling video first. And that way we can set all this up to the animator and maybe even learn how to set these states just in our animation states. Anyway, so this all works for you all. I think it's pretty dope. I know it's like just on the surface here, it's really rudimentary. Just look at what we have at the end, but really, like all this stuff, setting up your states like in a way that is easy to organize and you can update it at a time, or at runtime, excuse me, is just really powerful. And I really do, like even for my own sake, want to make a more powerful scripting system. Mine were really like not generic. I tried to make them that way and then they weren't, and then it was just like I mean, in the end it's working out okay, but these could be really, really powerful where you have like just lists of variables, so that way when you are editing it, you have the script here and then you go into your actual states and we drop down the actual event. It'll be much different based on what event you have, or excuse me, what script that you have. I already have that a little bit, but it's sort of like brute force. It's like, no matter what I have open, I have a bunch of different variables and a bunch of different object references, but it only matters what I pick, and I could clean that up with hard code, but if it was more generic and elegant, it would just be really clean and nice. So anyway, if you have questions, let me know. I know there's a lot of stuff we didn't get to yet. Some stuff I sort of glanced over about, someone in particular asked about having smooth motion and things like that. That beginning, having this friction and stuff, I think helps a lot. Having that sort of mentality. Mentality isn't the right word, but just sort of philosophy or like foundation, and then adjusting those frictions throughout the development just to make it smooth. And a lot of it has to do with animation and canceling stuff, which we'll get to next time. I mean, yeah, we'll probably model something real quick. Just trying to think. It doesn't matter right now, right? Anyway, again, if you have questions, let me know. If you'd like to support these videos, patreon.com/Culture Attack. Also, Culture Attack at Twitter. Seriously, like, I love doing these videos and I love helping people out. Let me know. If there's specific things you want to know. Like I'm mumbling a little bit, just making sure the mic's picking it up. Just trying to think, there's something I wanted to mention first. We could look at our checklist here. So if there's anything right at the end there. Do a better job of this, the vector input stuff. Yeah, a lot of this other stuff is just things that we'll have to get to later, hit detection and stuff like that. Thanks again. Support continues to grow, which is amazing. Yeah, thanks. Check out Citadel Deep when it's coming along. It's coming along good. We got a sneak peek of that Ario's working on. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.